الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد, it's narrated in the Sunan of Abu Dawood, Hadith 2659, from Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, that he said, on the day of the Battle of Badr, Utbah bin Rabi'ah came forward and said, are there any of you that are willing to engage us in a traditional challenge of a 3-combat duel? The Ansar replied back to him by saying, we are. He said to them, and who are you? They said, we are the Ansar. He replied by saying, I admire your bravery, but I want a traditional duel with our peers, our equals, and your allies who have betrayed us. Then Hamza bin Abd al-Muttalib emerged onto the battlefield, and he summoned me and Ubayd ibn al-Harith. He unsheathed his sword, and then shortly afterwards went towards Utbah bin Rabi'ah and killed him, having given him a severe blow. The first of our loud salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. A second even louder salawat in honor of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala. A third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli ala. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Cousin of Muawiyah and nephew of Hind, Muhammad bin Abi Hudhayfa, was one of the biggest lovers of Imam Ali alayhi salam. That sentence doesn't really normally add up. Normally when you hear someone is the cousin of Muawiyah and the nephew of Hind, you would automatically assume that this would be one of the worst enemies of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. But the beauty of this world is that sometimes the khabith comes from the tayyib, and the tayyib comes from the khabith. Because the reality of Muhammad bin Abi Hudhayfa was that in the middle of the environment in which he was raised, he still found the wilayah of Imam Ali alayhi salam. This without a doubt is a personality of the utmost importance. Why? Because many human beings normally blame their environment for their religion or their religiosity. Many times you'll see that in the history of humanity, we either blame our environment for the religion that we've chosen, or we blame our environment for our lack of religiosity. Sometimes, for example, if someone's living in a majority atheist country, they'll say it's because the majority of the country is atheist that I'm atheist. If the majority of the country were religious, I'd be religious. But because everyone around me is atheist, that's why I'm atheist. Then you'll have some who'll say that I'm Muslim but not religious because the people around me aren't religious. My friends aren't religious, they don't come to the mosque, they don't practice the religion. So it's because of the environment that I'm nurtured in, that's the reason that I'm not so religious. Sometimes you might find someone who's not Shia, they'll say to you that the only reason that I'm not Shi'i is because I've been born into a Sunni family. My family are not followers of Ahlul Bayt as such, and therefore while they love them and they respect them, I inherit what I have, and that which I inherit is what I keep with me. Most times you'll see the human being will literally follow their environment or use it as an excuse. But in the case of Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa did not use this excuse at all. Because Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa is one of those rare examples of personalities whose environment did not stop him soul searching for the truth. Yes, no doubt, my environment can have some role. At the end of the day, if I live in a city where there is no Imam Barga, no Husayniyah, no Majlis, no doubt I may not be exposed to the path of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without a doubt, has left the doors open for me to find the truth. Otherwise, Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, both Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali could have easily blamed their environment for remaining Christian or not religious. But both of them found God. Therefore, this Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, on the first level, it's vital to study his biography. Why? Because on the first level, he proves that just because your family is not religious, it doesn't mean you can't be religious. Just because your family is not on the path of Ahlul Bayt, doesn't mean you can't be on the path of Ahlul Bayt. That's on the first level. On the second level, we unfortunately have not dissected the lives of the companions of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in depth. These companions, Ashab al-A'imma, these are the urafa of our lifetime. These are the ones who had ma'rifah of the imams of their time. How many times do you see there are companions of the imams who people may study about? Imam Ali alayhi salam, people know about Salman, they know about Abu Dhar, they know about Miqdad. Ask somebody how great is Rushad al-Hajari. Many don't know Rushad. Maybe some have not heard of him. You ask how great is Amr bin Hamaq al-Khuza'i. Many may not have heard of him. You ask how great is Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. You'll find that while many in the Shia world appreciate the companions of the Imams, many of us have missed out on the discussions of many of their lives. There are so many, to the extent that the Imam himself says that there are 5 Muhammads who were a base for Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. One of those Muhammads I'll look at tomorrow. Another one is Muhammad bin Ja'far. Another one is Muhammad, son of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Another one is Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. These companions, it's vital that someone dissects their life. Why? Because there are many lessons from their life that I can apply today. This person is not just someone who lived 1400 years ago. This person, his auntie is Hind. His cousin is Muawiyah. Who raised him? He was raised from when he was a baby by Uthman bin Affan. I don't think you can get a categorization of Umayyad upbringing like he had. But I want to ask the question, how did this person find Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen in his life? How did this person become a mawali of Imam Ali alayhi salam? How does Allah give hidayah to someone who's born, one may argue, in the house of evil? Because Hind and her circle was the house of evil. So how does this person, Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, find hidayah while he is the nephew of Hind? That's on the second level. On the third level, this Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa became an inspiration for others. How? That there's always a chance for you to find the right path if you search it. Many times we write off people. That the moment someone is from a bad family or not that religious, we say that's it, you'll never make it. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa highlighted to us that a person may be born in an environment far away from Allah, but the doors of Tawbah never close for that person. The doors of repentance never close. The doors of hidayah never close for that person as well. Therefore, tonight, on the anniversary period that we have of the Battle of Badr, which you know took place in the middle of the holy month of Ramadan, let's examine the biography of Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa and see that how could someone from Bani Umayyah end up being a lover of Bani Hashim? And I'd like to do this in the following stages. Number one, who was his father, Abu Hudayfa? And how much inspiration did Muhammad get from his father? Number two, on the day of Badr, how did his father stay with Rasulullah's side while his grandfather was the leader of the opposition? And has there ever been a situation where a father is the leader of one side and his son is on the other? Number three, this Muhammad, what is it that he saw in his father? Number four, how did Uthman bin Affan raise him? Number five, how did Muhammad turn against Uthman and highlight that Uthman bin Affan's government had too many decisions of corruption and too many corrupt individuals? Number six, how did Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa highlight that he was a Rafidi and that he rejected the Caliph even though the Caliph raised him? Number seven, in Ziyarat Ashura we say, Allahumma la'an Bani Umayyata qatibata. Oh Allah, curse the whole of Bani Umayyah. But what happens if there's someone from Bani Umayyah who was a Shi'i? Does that mean that the line in Ziyarat Ashura is wrong? Or does the line in Ziyarat Ashura have another explanation? Finally, when Muawiyah imprisoned Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, he offered him a chance to leave prison. What did Muawiyah say to him about Imam Ali being a kadhab? And how did Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa tell him who the real kadhab was? Let's examine this unbelievable personality and dissect his life in complete depth. Muhammad was the son of Abu Hudayfa. Abu Hudayfa was the brother of Hind. Hind, daughter of who? Hind was the daughter of Utbah bin Rabi'ah. Utbah bin Rabi'ah was one of the main enemies of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. Abu al-Walid, if you looked in Meccan Quraysh society, who were the main enemies of the Holy Prophet? Abu Jahl, Abu Sufyan, Walid ibn al-Mughira, Utbah bin Rabi'ah, all of these, Al-Hakam bin As and Umayyah bin Khalaf. These were the main enemies of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. Utbah hated Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa with a passion. Why? Because when someone comes to open the minds of the young, it makes the elders become angry. Because the elders are the aristocrats of society. All of a sudden, someone like the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, all of his words, they were literally changing the status quo. This Utbah bin Rabi'ah became more inflamed. How? Imagine, you already hate the Prophet. Imagine he converts one of your children to his path. Imagine now, your son was an idol worshipper, and his son was an idol worshipper, and his son was an idol worshipper. Then this young man emerges, a poor orphan, emerges who brings a message called Islam. All of a sudden your sons are all going towards his path. What would happen in your head? You'd go crazy. Because you'll be like, this guy has taken my son away. Utbah bin Rabi'ah, he had a number of sons. Of them was who? He had Abu Hudayfa, that was one of his sons. Al-Walid was one of his sons. And he was known as being powerful. He had a daughter by the name of Hind. We all know Hind very well. Hind, she was the powerhouse of Quraysh. Someone says she's a lady. How can she be the powerhouse? No, that was a lady, but in reality a man walking on the earth, not a lady. That was a man. Hind was a man, not a lady. That Hind, she could walk on the earth, walk into Dar al-Nadwa. Anyone who opposed her, her tongue was this long, literally and metaphorically. Her tongue was this long that she would scathe you if she wanted to attack you. Dar al-Nadwa, those who've been ziyarah with me or been umrah with me will know, Dar al-Nadwa is outside of Safa Marwa. If you come from outside of Safa Marwa, you look straight ahead, the big mountain which is the Sha'b of Abu Talib. Just underneath that, there is Dar al-Nadwa. That was the Arabian Parliament. In there, Utbah bin Rabi'ah was angry and his daughter was more angry. She's like, Dad, for how long is Muhammad going to affect our kids? My brother Abu Hudayfa has joined the religion of Islam. Abu Hudayfa was a soft spot for Utbah bin Rabi'ah. He loved his boy. But his boy was very open that, Dad, listen, you have your path, I have my path. You have your qabr, I have my qabr. I can't say I'm not religious because my mum's not religious. I can't say I'm not going mosque because dad's not going to mosque. Dad's got his day of judgment, you've got your day of judgment. When people make excuses for their religiosity, at the end of the day, you have your feet and your dad has his feet. You have your eyes and your dad has his eyes. At the end, if your parents want to do something, you're not obliged to follow your parents and everything that they do. You're obliged to show akhlaq to your parents. That should never change. But if your parents have a particular philosophy and you have a particular philosophy, you don't need to follow their philosophy. So what Abu Hudayfa said to his father was what? He said, Dad, you have your way and I have mine. You want to worship these idols. I don't believe that these idols are to be worshipped. Why? He said, because if I pick up an axe now and smash the idol, is it going to protect itself from me? He said, no. He said, so how can I worship a God that can't protect itself from the creation of God? At the end of the day, either use your intellect. His father became enraged. But his father, at the same time, he had a soft spot for the son, because even though the son had left the path of idol worship, the dad still has a soft spot for the boy. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that for this person, Abu Hudayfa, it was delicate. His sister Hind is a big mouth. She's causing trouble against him. His brother Al-Walid, another big mouth, causing trouble against him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, you go with who? With Ja'far al-Tayyar. Go to live in Africa. Stay away. Don't stay here. Over here, there's going to be a few of us who will survive. Some of us will have stones pelted at us. Others of us will be spat at. Others of us will be called Majnoon. Others will be called Sahir and Kahin and Sha'ir. But you, Abu Hudayfa, you go to Abyssinia. Go with Ja'far al-Tayyar. Spread Islam in Africa. The first Muslim to be born in Africa was who? Was Bibi Zainab's husband. He was the first ever Muslim to be born in Africa. Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. Then after that, the community in Africa grew until, mashallah, I see a lot of you around me now. The community in Africa grew and grew. But the first ever Muslim in Africa was Bibi Zainab's husband. He was the first to be born in Abyssinia. And then Abu Hudayfa and his wife Sahla, they had a son. They named him Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. A second louder salawat if you don't mind. A third even louder salawat. They had their children in Africa, highlighting if there's a city you can't practice your religion, Allah's earth is vast enough for you to travel. Don't make excuses on the city you live in for why you can't practice. This family, they said, listen, we have to go to Africa, we'll go to Africa, so be it. I'm not going to stay here, and I'm going to force myself to be here so that my father or my siblings cause trouble for me. Eventually, what happened? Eventually, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, when he went towards Medina, he done the hijrah. Those people from Africa started to do hijrah back where? To Medina. When they did hijrah back to Medina, where did they come to? They came towards the Prophet, peace be upon his family. Then you had Abu Sufyan and Hind, husband and wife, could not take that the Muslims were living in peace in Medina. We tried to kill them for 13 years in Mecca. It was not working, so they couldn't take it that they were living in peace. So what did they do? They said, let's start a battle against the Muslims. And the battle was in Shahr Ramadan in the second year after Hijrah. The first battle in the history of the religion of Islam, in the middle of the month of Ramadan, in the second year after Hijrah, was the battle of Badr. The battle of Badr was led, they came towards Badr, the Prophet's army came, 313, and the opposition army came, how many were they? About 950 to 1,000. When they all came to that battle, one of the most difficult moments for Abu Hudayfa was what? I've come out with the Holy Prophet, and I've heard that the opposition army have also come. And I'm just hoping Dad's not there. Because if Dad's there, and he still loved his dad, He loved his dad. Because I don't care what happens. You, even if your dad is on one path and you're on another, you still love your dad. You still love him. Dad is dad. Unless your dad has done dhulm to you one way or the other, he's still your dad. This Abu Hudayfa had started a family. What's the dream of someone who starts a family? That their kids meet their granddad, isn't it? When you have children, you want them to meet your dad. Now you imagine his situation, Abu Hudayfa, Muhammad's father, that he is in Medina, and he now hears that the army have come from where? The army have come from Mecca, and he asks the question at the beginning of the battle. He says to Rasulullah, let me fight. And then he looks towards the opposition. I don't know how many of you in the crowd or those watching online, how many of you here have watched the film, The Message? The famous film, The Message. Yeah? How many of you remember the scene when Utbah bin Rabi'ah comes out and he says, where are the three to fight us? Do you remember in that scene when Abu Hudayfa wants to come out, Rasulullah holds him. He holds him because he wanted to come out. And wallah, it's a very heartbreaking moment, this moment. He wanted to come out. Why? Because on the one hand, he's a mujahid in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the other hand, it's the biggest test of your iman when you see the three who have come out. Who are they, the three that have come out? Utbah bin Rabi'ah, as is narrated in the Sunan of Abu Dawood, the hadith that I quoted, Utbah bin Rabi'ah came forward, Hind's father. He came forward, he said, who will challenge us in the traditional 3-on-3 combat? The Ansar of Medina, the people of Medina, they came forward. What did they say? They said that we will. He said, who are you? They said, we are the Ansar of Medina. He said, look, I admire your bravery, but I would prefer that I have my peers and my equals and my allies and your allies from the Quraysh who have been treacherous to us. When he said that, at that moment, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib alayhi salam, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib looked at him. He turned around to Imam Ali alayhi salam and he said, Ali, come forward. Imam came forward. And then he said, Ubayd ibn al-Harith, you come forward. Ubayd ibn al-Harith came forward. When they both came forward, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib looked at the opposition. When he looked at the opposition, he said to them, are we your equals? Who was the opposition on that day? The opposition on that day were Utbah bin Rabi'ah, his brother Shaybah, and his son Walid. Now you imagine Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, who's he looking at are the three opposition. Imagine, I want you just to think about this. Abu Hudayfa, who's he looking at? Your dad, your uncle, and your brother are the three soldiers representing the kuffar in front of you. Is that a test or no? My dad is in front of me, and I've got my brother Walid, who I grew up with, and I've got my uncle Shaybah, and I also know that it's inevitable they're going to die. Why? Because we've got two lions of Allah in front of them. Yes? Who do we have in front of them? You have Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib and Ali bin Abi Talib. Utbah. Ya Ali. Utbah bin Rabi'ah. When he came forward, he was in front of Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib. All of you have seen this scene in the message when Dhul Fiqar comes out. You've seen it. Utbah bin Rabi'ah, he comes in front of Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib. Al-Walid in front of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Shaybah in front of who? And sometimes the order differs in the world of a hadith. Before you know it, you saw what had happened. Hamza killed who? He killed Utbah bin Rabi'ah. He killed Abu Hudayfa's dad. Interestingly, in Sunni narrations, very clearly it says that Abu Hudayfa, before the battle, some weakness affected him. How? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa had made it clear. The Bani Hashim who are in the Kuffar's army, do not kill them. Who was in the Kuffar's army from Bani Hashim? Abbas, uncle of the Prophet. Rasulullah said some of the Bani Hashim in the opposition army have been forced to come to the battle. Do not kill them. Abu Hudayfa said, but you ask us to kill our dads and no one can kill from yours? In Sunni narrations, you know what's written? In Sunni narrations written that Rasulullah turned around to Umar and he said to him, Abu Hafs, you allow someone to talk like that? And Umar said, I'm going to go and behead him. And the guy said, no, just calm down. I've changed my mind. Okay? So normally, this is the way it's portrayed. But for Abu Hudayfa, that battle, it was extremely difficult. Why? Because he saw Utbah killed. And he saw Al-Walid killed. And he saw Shayba killed. And that's where the venom of Hind begun against Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Yep. The venom of Hind begun from that day. Why? Because she hated Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and now Imam Ali alayhi salam and Hamza. And so she waited the following year to take out her venom on Hamza. In which battle? In the battle of Uhud. What did she do? She took out the liver of Hamza and she either ate it or she chewed it or she had it cooked and put it on a necklace. Someone turns around to me and said, Ammar, maybe these things are exaggerated. 2 days ago I saw a video in Syria. 2 days ago there's a video in Syria. They've cut up someone's chest, completely cut, while the guy's alive. Hamza was dead. This person's alive. They've cut the body up. They've taken out either the heart or the liver, and the person removes his mask, he starts eating it live. But of course, what do you expect if a former ISIS general leads? So what do we expect? To have Mother Teresa in power? Therefore, this Abu Hudayfa, the hardest test for him was what? Was the battle of Badr. His son Muhammad saw his father how difficult. Do you know how difficult it is for converts, my dear brothers and sisters? When a person's whole family is on one path and they leave that family, it's not easy like it is for me and you. Me and you, all our families are Shia. We're already born on the path. When you meet someone who, for example, was Sunni who became Shia, and their whole family is still Sunni, do you know how difficult it is for them? Sometimes they lose their friends, they lose their family, some of their family doesn't speak to each other. Then you have someone who's Christian who becomes Shia. Sometimes the whole of their community neglects them. This Abu Hudayfa, his son, was inspired by his dad. How? Number one, that his dad spoke haqq in the face of batil. That was number one. Number two, that his dad didn't care if he was alone. That his dad didn't care that no one else was joining him. That was number two. And number three, that his dad had a love for Rasulullah and the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Therefore, that Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, he knew that Hind was his auntie, and he knew that Muawiyah was his cousin, and they all grew up together. But did it affect him in the slightest? No, it didn't affect him. How so? This Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, when he was born, who raised Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa? Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa was raised by Uthman bin Affan. Uthman, as you know, is related to the Umayyads. Uthman raised Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. You would think that when someone raises you, you would stay on their path, wouldn't you? They raised you, they kept you on the path, they have a particular ideology. This Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, he was raised by Uthman, appreciated being raised by Uthman, until Uthman became Khalifa. When Uthman became Khalifa, what did Uthman do to the Caliphate? Uthman began to bring back all the old enemies of Rasulullah. He started giving each one of them positions in the government. Someone says, give me an example. One of the examples who he brought back into the government was who? Abdullah ibn Sa'ad ibn Abi Sarh, or ibn Abi Sarh. Abdullah ibn Sa'ad ibn Abi Sarh has a wonderful CV, mashallah. Uthman, he used to always pick the best CVs to put in power. Go and look at Walid bin Uqba's CV. Yes, Walid bin Uqba. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiq becomes the governor of Kufa one day. That's the CV you need. As long as you've been a fasiq, we will let you lead salah. Yep. Abdullah bin Abi Sarh. Who is Abdullah bin Abi Sarh? Abdullah bin Abi Sarh was one of the worst enemies of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa, but he was Uthman's foster brother. They were both suckled from the same mother. They're cousins with one another. This Abdullah bin Abi Sarh, you know what type of person he was? In the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, he was the one who, when wahi would come to the Prophet, he would say, wahi has come to me as well. By the way, he was katib al-wahi. At the beginning, he used to write wahi. At the beginning. He used to write the Quran. Then he apostated and left Islam. Which shows you that just because someone wrote wahi, it doesn't mean it's fada'il for him. Because he wrote wahi and he left Islam. How many times do you hear Muawiyah, katib al-wahi. Muawiyah wrote the wahi. You always hear this argument. There's always two main arguments for Muawiyah. Number one, uncle of the mu'mineen. Number two, katib al-wahi. Muawiyah, if he wrote the wahi, I still don't know which ayah he wrote, but let's go with the flow. Muawiyah wrote the wahi. Writing the wahi doesn't mean you cannot apostate later. Abdullah bin Abi Sarh, he wrote the wahi. Later he said, no, I'm not writing the wahi. Wahi comes to me. You've read the ayah. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمَ مِمَّنْ افترى على الله كذبا وكذب بآياته. Who is more evil than the one who forges lies against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and lies against the signs of Allah? That was the glorious CV of Abdullah bin Abi Sarh. An ayah of the Quran was revealed in Surah Al-An'am in his honor, that who is more evil? وَمَنْ أَظْلَمَ مِمَّنْ افترى على الله كذبا أو كذب بآياته. Would you ever make someone like this governor of Egypt in your khilafah? And they tell me rightly guided. Which rightly guided? Which rightly guided? What's rightly guided about that? Someone who used to say that wahi comes down on me like Muhammad claims it comes down on him. All of you here are great historians. I ask you a question. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa opened Mecca, didn't he say, I forgive everyone? Today is the day of mercy. He said, I forgive everyone except 4 men and 2 women. Wherever you see them, even if they're holding on to the Kaaba, kill them. Can you kill someone by the Kaaba? If a mosquito is on your hand in Hajj, can you kill it or no? You can't. The Kaaba is sacred ground. You agree? Rasulullah, when he opened Mecca, he said very clearly that there are 4 men and 2 women who, if you find them, kill them even if they're holding on to the Kaaba. Which 4 men and 2 women? Of the men, he said Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh. Anyone who finds him, kill him. Don't let him go. There's no forgiveness for him. Because this man has corrupted the religion of Islam with his words. Uthman protected him. Uthman protected him. And by the way, everything I say, you can go and check in the resources. Uthman protected him. Why? He said, leave my cousin alone. If Rasulullah tells you to kill someone, can you offer an opinion or do you have to do it? You have to do it. Can you turn around and say you're delirious? No. Can you turn around and say you're crazy? No. Can you turn around and offer your opinion? No. Rasulullah tells you, go and kill that person. You cannot say, but he's my cousin, leave him alone. Uthman protected Abdullah bin Abi Sarh until 20 odd years after the Prophet had died. He made him governor of Egypt. Who was raised by Uthman since he was a baby? Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa was in Egypt. Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh is in Egypt. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa turns around. He says, this Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh, what are you doing? You're stealing the money of the Muslims. You're meant to be the governor of Egypt. You're far away from the morals of Islam. He writes, Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh writes to Uthman. He says to him, listen, this boy who you raised is now, by the way, an adult. He's no longer a kid. And he's causing me a headache. Sort him out. Uthman replies back by saying to him, the boy is still a baby. He hasn't even grown feathers yet. This is the Arabic I'm translating for you. He hasn't grown feathers yet. So just let him keep talking. Then Abdullah bin Sa'ad replied, no, he is causing me dissent and trouble and speaking out against me. and I am the governor of Egypt. Uthman sent 30,000 dinar to the boy he raised as a child. That boy who had seen his dad raised in a house where his dad stood up against his family, decided, I will follow the sunnah of my father. My father stood up against his father when his father was fighting Rasulullah. Now I will stand up against the Khilafah of Uthman. When Uthman sent 30,000 dinar, it reached this Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. Muhammad said, what's this 30,000 dinar? He put it all out in front of the people in the mosque. He said, that Khalifa who sits over there, he tries to bribe us. Someone said, but he raised you. He said, he raised me, he didn't raise me, he's on batil. Do you know how hard it is to say the words of haqq in the face of batil? It is one of the most difficult things to do. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, he said, that man's on batil, I will not give in to him. And he ended up telling the people of Egypt, all of you rise against Uthman and do not let Uthman rule the way he's ruling. Who was it therefore? That was the one who caused people to rise against Uthman. One of them, and I mention and underline, one of them, not all of them. One of them was Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. You would think, Muhammad, but wait, number one, Muhammad, Uthman raised you. Just because someone raises me in a certain aqidah doesn't mean I have to follow that aqidah. There are many Muslims in the world today, wallah, like sheep. You tell him Muawiyah fought Ali at Siffin, he says yes, but they're both in Jannah. It's Baba, no aqil. No aqil. You say Rasulullah taught me how to walk into the bathroom, I have to put my right foot first. So he teaches me how to put my right foot first, but doesn't tell me who his successor is. There's no aqil. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa could have easily been like the rest of the sheep. You know, Uthman raised me, I should follow that path. I don't follow anyone else. No, he turned around and said, no way. The man raised me, credit to him, he raised me. But that man appointing all of Bani Umayyah, my cousin, the Zalimeen, putting them all in power one by one, I will not remain silent against him. And that's why this Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa and others like Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Ammar bin Yasir, Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, Hudayfa al-Yaman, all of these stood up against Uthman bin Affan. That's why for us the Shia, when someone says to us that why don't you revere Uthman, we say number one, other Sahaba didn't revere him, it's not just us. If Ammar doesn't revere him, and Abu Dhar doesn't revere him, and Abdullah bin Mas'ud doesn't revere him, and those, then don't blame me. The earliest Sahaba did not revere him. But number two for me as well is that he brought back all of the worst and he put them into power. Eventually, this Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa speaking out against Uthman, Uthman eventually was killed. The groups from Egypt, because of Abdullah bin Sa'ad bin Abi Sarh being in power, the groups in Egypt could not take it anymore. So they kicked out Abdullah bin Sa'ad. They went towards Medina. And Uthman was what? And Uthman was killed. This Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa becomes governor of Egypt when Imam Ali becomes Khalifa. When Imam assumed the Khilafah, he put Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa as governor of Egypt. But Muawiyah could not rest that this guy had backstabbed Bani Umayyah. Muawiyah and Amr ibn al-As, when Imam Ali came into power, the rumor that they spread was what? Ali ibn Abi Talib is the cause of the death of Uthman, or that Ali ibn Abi Talib knows who the killers of Uthman are and he's protecting them. So what they started to do, they started to go after these people. Amr ibn al-As meets Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa. When he meets him, he says to him, listen, I'm willing to leave Muawiyah. Let's meet in the area of the Arish. We'll meet over there and we'll talk. I'll bring 100 men. You bring 100 men and let's discuss. But Amr ibn al-As is Amr ibn al-As. When they both came to the area of the Arish to meet, what happened when they met? Amr ibn al-As turned around. He said, you have your 100? He said, yes. He goes, I've got my 100 and I have many more over here behind. All of a sudden, lots of soldiers emerged. They all captured Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, Muawiyah's first cousin, Hind's nephew. They captured him and they took him to the prisons of Sham. Okay. When they took him to the prisons of Sham, You'd think that when you're taken to Muawiyah's prison, Sham has had thousands of years of evil prisons. When you're taken to Muawiyah's prison, you'd think that you'd be scared, wouldn't you? You'd think that you'd be worried. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa was chilling in those prisons. Yaqeen and full of faith. And one of the greatest passages of haqq against batil, of Shi'ism against Jahiliyyah of Bani Umayyah. And one of the greatest stands I've ever seen as a speaker in the history of majalis I've given was Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa's conversation with Muawiyah in prison. Muawiyah's sister, who is she? Muawiyah's wife, who is she? Muhammad's sister. Muawiyah's wife, Muhammad's sister. And she was sad that her brother's inside. She used to send food in when Muawiyah wouldn't see. She used to send water in when Muawiyah wouldn't see. Until eventually Muawiyah came to Muhammad. He said to him, my cousin. He said to him, yes. He said, we can resolve this easily. This is now the test, how much you're attached to this dunya and how much you believe in akhirah. This is the test. Because in prison, all of us may face this one day. Someone puts a gun on your head. Are you ready to leave the wilayah of Imam Ali or no? Have you ever thought of that? It could happen. Listen, it could happen. The way the world is going, don't think because we're here that it may not reach us. I think it will eventually. That you're going to face a day where someone comes to you and says that, will you leave the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen or no? And the reason we discuss this man is that this man shows you, learn from me. My auntie at the liver of Hamza and my cousin was the biggest Umayyad, but my love was Ali ibn Abi Talib. Al-Khabith comes from the Tayyib and the Tayyib comes from the Khabith. Muawiyah looked at him in the prison. He said to him, listen Muhammad, you're my cousin and my brother-in-law. I'll let you go. I'll let you go. You've been quite loud for a while. You spoke out against Uthman. I'll let you go if you agree on our terms. And do you know how many of our ulama were inspired by Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa's story and they died in prison, executed by tyrants, but they felt strong because of Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa? Muawiyah looked at him. He said to him, listen, Ali ibn Abi Talib is the cause of the killing of Uthman. Leave that liar kadhab and I'll give you freedom. Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa looked at him. He said, no, he's not the cause. You are the cause. And Talha is the cause. And Zubair is the cause. And Aisha, your mother, is the cause. Wait, I have to ask Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa a question from Birmingham 2025. Muhammad, why aren't you peaceful? Muhammad, why are you causing this difficulty and difference between Muslims, Muhammad? Why? Instead, you could have just said, let's agree to disagree. Why are you naming names, Muhammad? Why don't you ask him, by the way, if you want, ask him on Qiyamah. Stand him up and say, Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa, why did you cause disunity in your majalis? Ask him. So we see what his reply is. He's trained by Ali ibn Abi Talib. He's the governor of Ali ibn Abi Talib in Egypt. We must ask him, don't you agree? He didn't say, you know, we all have the same salah and we break iftar, so we're all brothers. He said to Muawiyah, he said to him, listen, you're the cause. Talha, Zubair and Aisha, all of you are the reason Uthman died. Someone says, how could they all be the reason? How? Talha and Zubair want power. Aisha is angry with him on a number of issues, especially regarding her inheritance and regarding Walid bin Uqba being governor of Kufa. They all have their issues with him. Muawiyah claims, I'm after Uthman's blood. You were chilling in Sham when Uthman was begging you for help and you never came to help. So he said to him, rather on the contrary, Muawiyah, you and Talha and Zubair and Aisha are the reason Uthman fell. And I'm not the only companion who spoke out. Did not Abdullah bin Mas'ud speak out? Did not Ammar bin Yasir speak out? Did not Abdul Rahman bin Auf speak out? All of them spoke out against Uthman. You're blaming me. Maybe because I'm related to you, it's easier to attack the ones closer to you than the ones outside. So maybe you're blaming me. Then he looked at him and he said to him, Muawiyah, let me tell you something. I've known you since Jahiliyyah. We grew up together, we're the same family. Your Islam has never increased one bit since you claim to have become a Muslim in those days. And do you know what the proof is that your Islam has never improved one bit? He said to him, what is it? He said, your hatred for Ali ibn Abi Talib shows you're a hypocrite. Oh. In Sunni literature, all of the books say, we would know the munafiq by his hate of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But that Ya Ali wasn't as strong as yesterday. Do another Nara Haidari and a louder Ya Ali. Ahsant, 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 ahsant. Look at the way he says to him. And no one can tell who you are better than your family, true? No one knows you better than your family. If it was someone outside, I'd say, okay, there might be a problem. He's Hind's nephew and he's Muawiyah's cousin. He turned around to him and he said, and the sign that no Islam has continued at all is what? Is that you have hatred to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He goes, whereas for me, I look at the difference between your companions and Ali ibn Abi Talib's companions. Your companions are tulaqa munafiqs, and his companions are muhajirs and ansar. He said, that is the difference between the two of you. Then he looked at him and he said, oh Muawiyah, let me tell you something, and I want to make it clear to you. I will forever love Allah and his prophet and his amir, and I will forever hate you and everyone associated with Bani Umayyah. Yes? How clear could you be than that? How much more clear? How much more clear? He turned around and he said, what you gonna do? You think prison scares me? My father left his dad, the head of Quraysh, to fight with Rasulullah. And I leave all of you, so I stick with the Amir. And I will never leave the Amir. And I will die on the path of the Amir. Just because my family is Bani Umayyah, my path is Bani Hashim. Allah. My family, yes, my auntie is Hind. Yes, my cousin is you. But yes, my Amir is Amir al-Mu'mineen. And from there they couldn't take it anymore. Like they couldn't take with the other companions. But what did he show us, Muhammad ibn Abi Hudayfa? Don't blame your dad for your religiosity or for your aqidah. You have your qabr, your dad has his. You have a path, your dad has his. Don't say that I follow a path of Islam because my parents follow. Say I choose and they chose. I choose because I understood where haqq was and where batil was. They eventually, according to certain hadith, they poisoned him eventually in prison. But he said, alhamdulillah, that I'm dying on the path of Ali ibn Abi Talib. What else do I want in my life? I spoke haqq in the face of batil. And I died praising my Amir. And that's why, subhanallah, my dear brothers and sisters, Muhammad bin Abi Hudayfa became a catalyst for every convert to the path of Ahlul Bayt. How? Many people, when they were on a path of batil, or they were related to batil, when they remembered Muhammad and Abi Hudayfa, they said, just because our path is batil, doesn't mean we can't change. Or just because our cousins are batil, it doesn't mean that we can't change. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that just 25 years after he died, on the plains of Karbala, there were those who changed to find the path of Ahlul Bayt. True? If you look in Karbala, how do you think people were inspired? They were inspired because when they knew stories of people like this who were born in the area or who had family who were the worst of the worst, that didn't stop them from finding the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They didn't use their home as an excuse, or their community as an excuse, or their country as an excuse. When they saw Ahlul Bayt, they knew the haqq was with Ahlul Bayt. None more so than Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi on the 10th of Muharram. True? Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi could have easily said that because I'm on this side of the army, therefore I cannot find the path. Because I'm on this path, I cannot change my destiny. No, on the contrary, he made sure that his destiny was in his hands. He made sure that he had used his free will to find the path of the Imam of his time. He didn't use any other excuse. He said that is the Imam of my time, the man who stands there, Wahidan, Farida, the man who stands opposite me, the Gharib, the Atshan of Karbala. Hur bin Yazid al-Riyahi went towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Even though he had 30,000 men behind him, and Sayyid al-Shuhada had only 100 odd around him, it didn't stop him. Haqq is not measured by numbers. Haqq is measured by the personality of those people. He saw those in front of him on the 10th of Muharram, and he looked one way, he saw Zayn al-Abidin. And he looked another, he saw Aba al-Fadl. And he saw another, and he looked and he saw Ali al-Akbar. And he looked around and he saw Qasim, and he realized that this is my destiny now. Either I blame my environment, or I choose a path. And he says the words wonderfully, that I have to make a decision between heaven and hell. Allahu Akbar. Do I blame my parents or my relatives for the path that I'm on, or do I rather find the path and the path of truth? And that's why the narration said to us that when he came to the Imam welcomed him with open arms. Hur apologized to the Imam, saying, forgive me for blocking the water from the children of Al Muhammad. Any other man would never have forgiven him. But is there a heart like the heart of Sayyid al-Shuhada? The way Abu Abdullah welcomed Hur towards the army on the 10th of Muharram. Hur pleaded with Imam al-Hussein, considering I blocked the water from your children, let me be the first to go out and fight. Abu Abdullah didn't let him go out to fight first. Why? Because that's not the way to treat a guest. The guest has come towards you, Ahlul Bayt, treat the guest better than anyone. Imam al-Hussein told him, do not worry, hold back, hold back. Hur remained, he remained until it came to midday on the 10th of Muharram. He saw that the companions were dying one by one. He couldn't take it anymore. He came out on the battlefields and he said, Inni ana al-hurru wa ma'wa al-dayfi adribukum fi a'naqikum bis-sayfi an khayri man halla bilad al-khayfi adribukum wa la ara min khayfi. He began to attack them one by one until all of a sudden they encircled him and they made him fall on the ground. He called out, Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. Imam al-Hussein came running towards the body of Hur. He sat by his holy body and he began to say the following words, O Hur, you are like your mother named you. You are Hur in this world and Hur in the hereafter. Who is like me that has the cheeks of Abu Abdullah on his cheeks when he dies? Imagine the state of Hur when he died. Imam al-Hussein picked up Hur's body. He took it back to the tent. Then he picked up Muslim bin Awsaj's body and he took it back to the tent. He picked up Habib bin Madar's body. He took it back to the tent. He picked up Habis al-Shakri's body and he took it back to the tent. I ask you all one question. Who picked up the body of Abu Abdullah when he lay on the ground on the 10th of Muharram? The poet answers it by saying the horse's feet were the ones that collected the body of Imam al-Hussein as he lay on the earth of Karbala. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Allah, raise us with Muhammad bin Abi Hudhayfa. Allow us to receive his shafa'ah on the day of judgment, and the shafa'ah of Ashab Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Ya Allah, allow us to be amongst the companions of the Imam of our time. Allow us to be amongst those who continue to ensure that the word of the haqq of Muhammad and Al Muhammad continues to spread, Ya Allah. Bless us that we are able to dissociate from the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, Ya Allah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the originators of this majlis and all of your marhumeen who instilled in us the love of Imam Ali alayhi salam with a surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.